My first question for you is what are some of the typical foods eaten in Egypt?
Good question. So typical foods. I'll tell you, rice is definitely a staple.
Yeah, a
Right,
core food.
base food. No matter what, I think there's rice every meal, except for breakfast. But let's start with breakfast. So breakfast. I mean, eggs are still very popular, but the most popular thing is fava beans.
Mm-hmm.
So breakfast with fava beans. I don't know if you know much about them, but they really soup them up and make it really cool. They make it with tomatoes and they just it's really cool. It goes really well with the and pita bread. So they do that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's a breakfast. And then they have something called it's like pastrami, but it's a different style of pastrami. And it's mixed in with eggs. So the two popular meals of breakfast, and I call them breakfast of champions because those beans, it's like good for the old farmers, people who farm. It's like you can have that in the morning and it lasts all day.
Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of cool. Um, so that's kind of the breakfast. I would say lunch. So they're interesting, right? So breakfast is usually later in like 10, 11 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have lunch at like 5 or 6.
Wow.
Good there, and then dinner is like really late. It's because it's a hot country,
Mm-hmm.
so they tend to like stay up late and wake up late because they don't want during the day it's a little too hot. So I would say lunch is around 5 o'clock ish, and that's the real dinner in my view. That's what we're used to in dinner wise.
Yeah.
So for dinner, again, rice is a staple for sure, and then I would say, wow, it's just a mix of stuff. So many good things, but I mean, like hummus, tabbouleh, those things are like also a staple in terms of like your side dishes. Almost every time there's hummus sitting there. Tabbouleh salad, if you know what that is, you can look it up. It's great,
Mm-hmm.
and they always have veggies. And then typically it's rice with some kind of I would say a vegetable dish in reds like in reddish sauce / with some meat in it like stew meat, all that. That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
And then you can either have chicken on the side or lamb is really big there as well. But chicken, lamb, um, and then there's stuff like all stuffed grape leaves. I don't know if I'm sure you've had dolmas. Have you heard of dolmas?
No,
You'll find
no.
store. They're more Greekish style, but it's like grape leaves, wrapped. Let's see, the interior of it's rice and usually some kind of lamb or beef, and it's wrapped in grape leaf, and it just tastes really good. It's really tangy, and it's cool.
Wow, that sounds really delicious.
Yeah,
Um,
it's great.
Next question. How do people eat food in Egypt?
How do they eat food? Let's see. They definitely like family style, right? So they all, it's more of a shared thing. Big
Mm-hmm.
plate. They do love, to do what I would call overindulge. Like they have a lot of choice. If you go to a dinner, it's not going to be like, hey, I got some rice, I got some beans, and a salad. It's like, hey, of course you got your rice. I got some stuffed grape leaves. I got stuffed pigeon. I got chicken. I got 2 different types of things to put in your rice. It gets crazy. So it gets really. So you have usually, like I would say, typically 3 to 4 main dishes,
Wow.
probably
Mm-hmm.
like 4 or 5 sides, and that's typically it. And you know, I mean, now they eat more with fork and knife, but depending on what it was, they usually eat with their big hands. Pita bread's big.
Yeah.
They love dipping in the sauces and stuff, and the hummus and so forth. You always have bread typically too, by the way, with
Yeah.
for both breakfast and lunch for sure.
All right. So speaking of that family style, who is typically present at the dinner table?
Basically the parents, of course, and then all the kids, and then any friends or family. But I would say a lot of them love to go and they all love to jump around to help house. It's really popular. I would say, gosh, especially the closer family, the parents and kids, even if they're married and all that, they'll rotate homes a couple times a week and just go from home to.
Yeah, very nice. Are there any specific rules that must be followed during a meal?
No, just Typically, I mean, I think what's important is like a lot of people like to. I think it's. Let me give you the rules of engagement. How about this? So if you're
Yeah.
coming outside and you don't know any better, if you finish your plate completely and empty it, means you still have to eat more. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
and if you don't like, so don't put yourself a ton of food, but they love throwing a ton of food on your plate. So try not to. You want to finish it all. If you're sure you can have more, because that's a sign of you really appreciate and you love their food,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then when you finish it all, then you got to have seconds, right? Of
Yeah.
something. So make sure you don't fill it up. And then you leave some on the plate because that means you're full.
Yeah.
Because if you kept your plate clean, it means you're either not enjoying the meal.
Mm-hmm. Or there's
Or-
like not enough food, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and there always is. So it's really important that like if you finish it all the first time, because you got to show them that you loved it, you enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
and the second time you put food on because you wanted more, because it's important. But then you got to leave some on the plate to say like I'm just so full I can't eat it.
Yeah. That's
If you
awesome.
empty it means what? You don't want to have any more? What? Did you not like it? Did you just eat it because? It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Pretty cool. How is food important to you?
Food too. It's huge. Arabs, Egyptians, and all that especially. That's a time of gathering,
Mm-hmm.
right? So enjoying good food is key. It's when everyone gets together for conversation, and it's really big. It's the way. A lot of countries do that. Some Europeans do it too. Like the Italians and so forth. But they're very big at gathering and eating. Even if it's going out to eat, it's always a gathering, and they sit for hours, and it's eating and then talking and then having some dessert or coffee and tea, and it just continues.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I think that's the social event for them.
Yeah. Are there any special ways food is used to celebrate?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it depends on the religion type too. Like Islamic have about three times a year. There's celebrations of some kind, where there's Hajj. They have what they call a celebration. It's called Eid, and they do for Hajj. Everyone slaughters a lamb or has lamb for dinner and cooks it. Right, that's just a sign of respect to the people who did their journey. And Ramadan, after Ramadan, if you know much about that,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
30 days of fasting, there's a big celebration, a feast. It's a feast celebration, so that's when everyone definitely goes and visits each other for 2-3 days, and it's just food, maybe a little too much. It's like engorgement of food. It's like terrible.
Yeah.
But lots of food, lots of desserts, and lots of gatherings, and it's just to celebrate, the struggles that they went through. So yeah, food from that perspective, it's always a big part of the ceremony for sure.
Yeah. Are there any foods that Egyptians consider morally or ethically like repugnant, like restricted foods?
Not Egyptians particularly, because there is about a 15% population is like, Christian and Jew, and then the rest are Muslim. But Muslim for sure, pork is not eaten. Neither is a Jewish, right? They don't eat pork. But that's really the only thing that I can think of that they don't eat.
All right. And then last question, why did you immigrate to the U.S.?
My parents actually moved here. He moved for college. He came here to get his PhD.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was here, just getting it, and he decided he got a really good job offer.
Yeah.
At the time, Egypt was under. It was more Russian. It was more toward. It wasn't communism, but they were definitely in the Russian influence. The Russians were their partners at the time, and my dad really didn't want to be a part of that, and so he wanted to really get out and come to the States, and he did. So he was able to get out. And then now Egypt no longer part of the Russian. They're more they're definitely sided with the Americans, but that's the reason why. I mean, good opportunities for him. He was a PhD in mechanical engineering, and there's not much really. And great jobs in Egypt. Jobs here were great. So
Awesome.
and that came to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I
You bet.
really enjoyed talking to you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hope that worked for you.
Awesome. See ya.
All right. See you later.